Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another rendition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. I'm very happy to welcome back to the Virtual Event Space, Mr. Joseph Carey, better known as JC. What's happening? How you doing, my friend?
We spoke, but aside from broken bones, I'm good. I'm excited to be here, like always. It's
Always,
always a
always
good day to
exciting to
see
have
some.
you here.
What's that?
It's always exciting to have you here. We love having you here.
I like being here.
Well, excellent. So thank you so much for being back here, broken bones and all. So if you see JC wincing in pain, he's really struggling through it. But we appreciate him being here. We're going to be talking a little bit about how to get great lighting anytime with the FJ wireless system. So thank you very much to the sponsors for this event, Westcott. Thank you everybody joining us at home via Vimeo, YouTube, Facebook, all the wonderful ways you can tune in and watch all of our wonderful events. If you have any questions for JC, want to find out anything related to lighting, he is the guy to ask. So go ahead and get those questions in on Zoom. You can use the Q&A tab. The rest of those sources, you can use the comment section and we'll get them over to him. Otherwise, JC, thanks for being here. I'll see you in a little bit.
Thanks a lot, brother. I'm going to share my screen now, and we'll get on with this. Share. All right, there we go. So I want to start out by saying thank you all for being here. This is a new class for me, but anybody who has seen From Fear to Flash or any of my other work will see some definite familiar things. This is going to be definitely about how to get great light, but also a little bit more about the system so that you understand why Westcott's going to give you great light anytime. So I'm going to shrink that. Okay, so let's start off with me. So this is how you guys can get me if you have questions that you don't think about during this discussion. jcarey@fjwestcott.com. That's my email. Don't forget the FJ. Definitely hit me up. There is my Instagram, JC Photo Media. Of course, there's also our website at Westcott, which is fjwestcott.com. And Westcott U has got a ton of really great information that is more lighting education based than product based, but it shows you how to get the best from each one of those products that we make. So a little bit about Westcott, and I think that you're going to hear me talk a little bit today about what I call the Westcott advantage. Reasons to choose us in a, let's face it, it's a really great time to be into photography. The cameras are amazing, the lighting's amazing. There's a lot of good stuff out there, so why choose us? Well, Westcott's been around forever. We're based in Ohio. Since 1969, we started making lighting gear. We have 14 patents and growing. There's actually more now, over 600 products. And we're here for you. And we're going to be here for you. We're not fly by night. We're not going to disappear. When you buy into this system, you are good to go. So let's talk about lighting. I myself, have been shooting my whole life. And I've always loved photography, no matter what job I was doing, whether I was shooting professionally or I wasn't shooting professionally. But for most of my life, I had what I like to call lighting anxiety. And it's a common ailment. And it kind of is seen, one of the side effects is when people are always going, well, I'm an available light shooter, as though they can't add constant light, as though they can't add a strobe anytime to try to get good light. Instead, they spend their time going, I can't shoot right now because the light's not good, or I can't shoot there because the light's not good. And that's really a waste of a lot of your time, like when it's really not that hard to make great light anytime. See how I tied that in? So why should we add lights? Why add lights? Like I said before, there's never been a better time to be a photographer. ISOs are through the roof, so adding light isn't necessarily going to be about adding light per se. We've got, I've got a camera now where I can comfortably shoot at 10,000 ISO, right? Like I can shoot much higher than that even. It's very rarely about how much light, but it's the quality of light, the color of the light, the really quality is the softness, the hardness, the directionality of the light. All of those things come together to help us tell stories, to help us really get people to see our subjects the way we want them to see them. And what's even better is that you don't have to make choices. Our eyes are amazing tools, and they have dynamic range that's through the roof. But our cameras, even in the best time ever, can't handle everything. So we see a scene like this. We get up early in the morning. We head out. We see a beautiful sunrise. You know, we've put in the work. We showed up somewhere at 4:30 in the morning. We wanted to see that 5:15 warm light coming up over. And then, you know, we have this because every flash image, and quite honestly, every lit image is two separate exposures. And if you wrap your head around that, then lighting becomes easy, becomes really super simple. So when I do any lighting, I kind of ignore my subject at first. I know that sounds terrible, but at first in my head, and I do this much faster than I used to because I've made so many mistakes in my life doing this. But when I get there, I take a look and I go, what do I want the background to look like? What do I want this scene to look like that I can control with just my camera? Because that's one exposure. Then the light that I add to my subject is a separate one. So in this case, 5.6 gave me enough depth of field to be happy. A wide angle lens, 5.6 is giving us nearly 25 feet of depth of field, right? It's a lot. 1/320th of a second in this picture is what gave me that nice deep color, which is close to what my eyes saw. ISO 64s, I'm just shooting at base ISO because it gives me the best image quality in this case, and I could do it. But now I'm going to add a light. In this case, just one light. Just one light can make such a dramatic difference. Huh. Okay. Give me 1 second, guys. I apologize. New class, right? Boy, I feel really bad there. All right, well, I'll fix that in the future. I made a mistake. Rest assured, there's a pretty picture of a girl in front of there. Again, two different exposures. So when you get a room that looks like this, and you decide to shoot it at 1.6 because it's a creative decision, and the ambient light is a 15th of a second, well, we don't need to deal with that because everything that we do is two separate exposures. By going to 1/160th at that 1.6, I make that room dark, and now I paint the light onto my subject. The light in that room wasn't good for what the Mets wanted in this case. I could have definitely shot an environmental portrait of the baseball players in front of the locker. That's not what they wanted. And they didn't really, long story short here is that this was with about 12 minutes notice. They were like, can you do this? And I was like, sure. But here we are with two lights and a reflector. I got my rapid box switch, smaller one, the 1.3, the 1x3, with the grid. The grid helps me control the fall off so that the light doesn't go to the back where the locker room was. If we take a look at that picture, that's what's behind this picture. There's no background in this picture. I didn't drop a background behind it like I have now. All I used was shutter speed, depth of field, ISO. Now I'm adding the light. And then there's a second light up above, which is what creates the separation. I have a very similar setup going on for what you see me right now, except these are constant lights. Another example of that. The available light tells me that this is the picture I can make if I want to shoot it at 1/8 and keep my subject correctly lit. But there's no reason that I should just take what the camera is going to give me. I should be able to make great light anytime. And here I am, just seconds later. I've changed my shutter speed in this case. Rapid box Octa L. I love the quality that comes out of that softbox. It's giant. It's a 48-inch Octa. Provides really soft light. We can talk. How do we get that soft light? By taking our light source and making it the biggest light source that we can make and putting it as close to the subject as possible. In this case, I've mixed directionality with softness. There are shadows. There are shadows to camera right there. But those shadows are purposeful. Like I put the shadows there because I took the main light source and I moved it far to camera left. Creating that light, I can do this and there's nothing wrong with that. Or I can do this and there's nothing wrong with this. They're both choices. And that's what photography is all about, is choice. It's being able to make the picture that you want rather than just take it. Just another example from that same shoot where now I've moved the light a little bit more in front and you see the shadows are a little less dramatic. There's the picture that was supposed to be at the end of the other one. All right, that's what happens when you do a new class when you're on painkillers. In any event, um, two separate exposures. The only thing different between this and that silhouette that we saw at the beginning was that I've added a light. And you can do this anytime. Any one of you that's watching this fully can do this. Here's Florida sunrise, and it's changing by the second. Anybody who's gotten up and shot sunrise or even sunset, the sunrise in my field, tends to happen faster because as soon as the sun comes over the horizon, everything's going to change. It's going to change fast. So I'm bouncing around this, dropping some lights, and we end up here. And it's a dramatically different picture. Just remember, every picture that you take with lights is two separate exposures. Another one of these examples where adding my FJ400s to this setup, and this is a complicated setup for me, and it didn't have to be this complicated. I used 4 lights here. I never do that, but this guy just built this motorcycle. We wanted to get some pictures of it. It hasn't been on at this point. He started it just to make sure the engine worked, but he hasn't ridden it. We pushed it up on top of the hill. You can see an FJ400 in the background. You can see an FJ400 to the left. There's another FJ400 with a big softbox up to camera right, up in the air. And then there is a strip on the ground right in front of him aimed up. And that's to make sure that we get some light on the motor. But remember, it's always 2 exposures. So I don't like the way the sky looks. I don't like the way the building looks. I don't like anything. So I keep the F8 because I want lots of depth of field. I want lots of detail in this picture. I switch it out to 2/50th of a second. 2/50th of a second brings me in that blue sky. But what else? Turns the whole picture into a silhouette. So now we got to add those lights. And I could have shot a little earlier and somehow blended the sky and him together. But for me, it was just, it's a creative exercise to be like, hey, let's make some cool light. And we turn on the lights and we end up here. That light in the background is aimed up. It's giving some texture on the background. We ran out of light, the ambient light, faster than I would have liked to. I didn't have a tripod. That's on me. I left the light in the picture on camera left because it looked kind of like a spotlight. It is the brightest part of this scene, and I go back and forth on do I take it out? Because honestly, it wouldn't be that hard to take out, but I like it. It stays in there. I think that your eyes know where to go. Interested to hear what you guys think. That one that's on the bottom, aimed up, is what's giving us all that detail in the engine bay, on the motor, under his boots, under his pants, under his chin. And the main light is up to camera right, is up in the air, coming back down. And that depth of field there, in this case, I did drop it down to 5.6 because, like I said, we were changing light. But 5.6 at 14 millimeters, the tire's in focus, the engine's in focus, he's in focus, we're all good. Another one of those examples where, ambient light shot would have been just fine. That's what it would have been like in an ambient light correctly exposed picture. Could have made pretty pictures. You got a good subject, you can make good pictures. But underexposing it a little bit meant that the trees looked better. I thought the rocks looked a little better. It gave me more of that summer, late summer kind of warm light kind of look. And then we add the light to it. Every picture that we do is 2 separate exposures. So, just one more. In this case, F13 gave me lots of depth of field because I knew that they were moving around. 2/50th gave me that blue sky. But I don't want a silhouette. So add a couple of lights. In this case, I used a couple of 32-inch umbrellas from Westcott. And, the quality of light is fine. It's really good. Here's a studio situation where I hear people go, oh, that makes sense outside, but in the studio, what do I do? Well, it's the same situation. In this case, this was a spring training this year, and I wasn't allowed to get within 15 feet of the players. So my setup here, I wish that you guys could see the points. We've got a 7-foot umbrella as the main light. You can see that up in the middle on the left. Got 2 1x4 strip boxes. You can see those to camera right and camera left of the backdrop, of the gray backdrop. Then I have a second setup here that I set up with a 1x3 strip box and the Rapid Box Large over here, taking advantage of our M6 plate, which turns my tripod into a light stand. Now, I have this in here not to be like, oh, wow, great studio or great whatever, but to show that with the same exact settings with different backgrounds, because the light is going to stay the same from these lights, we can get two totally different looks. On one, my exposure was set so that the background was correctly lit. I didn't light the background. The Mets were going to use these to cut these pictures out, so the light background didn't really matter as long as there was a clean break between the background and the player. Whereas on the right, what I wanted was to use the exact same exposure so I didn't have to switch back and forth. And I have that little bit of strip light off to the left, which is giving us separation on Mr. DeGrom's, left, his pitching arm. And then we have that big octa L off to the camera right, which is close enough to give soft light, but it's directional enough to leave us some shadows, which makes for a little bit more of a dramatic image. All right. So I told you we were going to talk product, and we're going to talk about product. And we're going to talk about what I call the Westcott advantage and why I was already using Westcott lights when I left my previous job and came to Westcott. In 2019, Westcott announced, first products in what would become the FJ wireless system. And those were the FJ400 and the FJX2M. Now, there's a lot of lights out there. You guys know that. If you're watching this, it means that you're interested in photography. And you're saying to yourself, well, there are other lights out there that are right in the same wattage, range. They're, okay, that's true. Number one, we already said it's not really about how much, although how much plays a difference in which modifiers we can use. It plays a lot of differences. But what makes ours better? Well, our system has a couple of things going. It's the fastest 400-watt light out there. Recycles in under a second, 0.9 seconds at full power. We get 480 full powers, and I'm going to say right now that I think that we underestimate that. I've done much better than that. But it's an AC/DC strobe, which means that we can run it off that battery, or I can plug it in when I'm in the studio and never miss a shot. Ready to go, and maintains that fast power. That's awesome. That's really cool. Battery performance we already talked about. As long as you plug it in while it's above 25%, you can just run it off the plug for the rest of the time. It has TTL, has high-speed sync, has freeze sync, all the things that you'd expect in a light that, quite honestly, that cost more. We can freeze sync up to 1/19,000th of a second, take advantage of that fast flash duration to freeze action, to freeze water droplets, to really be creative. We can shoot continuous capture up to 20 frames per second. That's awesome. We can do mask fun. We do a lot of fun stuff. This is all stuff you'd expect. Like any strobe that's in this price point, we expect it to do those things. All of our lights, because we're a modifier company, are optimized for our light modifiers. So our lights are out, our actual light source is out in front of the unit. It's not recessed. It's not put into some sort of a Fresnel. It's going to give you the best, widest spread of light to fill your softboxes, to fill your umbrellas, and give you great light. It uses a Bowens mount, which we know is ubiquitous. We have the whole switch system that can take advantage of it. But, there's a lot of Bowens modified, modifiers out there. So when you buy into our system, you're not going to be struggling or paying extra money to find light modifiers, which is a great advantage for us. This one's big, because when we decided to do this, we were like, well, we can do this and be me too, or we can do this and we can get out in front, and we can be better at everything that we do. The FJX2M was the first universal trigger. Pretty much any brand that you guys are shooting, I know there's a couple that aren't on there, and if they're not there, it doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It just means you might not get TTL or high-speed sync. But right now, Canon, Nikon, Sony, Lumix, Olympus, Fuji. I want to mention this, that if you go to our website or you go to B&H's website and you take a look at the cameras that we say are, have been tested to use, that's because we were able to actually test those cameras. If it's not on the list, it doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means we haven't had a chance to test it. So you'll notice that mostly it's newer cameras that are on the list. It shouldn't make you not buy into the system. It probably works. I have people hit me up and they're like, well, how about the 5D Mark II? There's a lot of them out there, right? Or D700s, there's a lot of them out there. Yes, it works. Just we haven't had a chance to test it with those because we don't have access to those in our warehouse, back in Ohio. So that FJX2M that we talked about works with the entire lineup. It also controls Canon speedlights, which is pretty cool. The 600s, the RT system. It's a 2.4 frequency. It has 6 native groups. You've got ABC on one page, scrolls down to D and F. You know, almost 1,000 feet of wireless range. You know, lots, handles the whole Canon ID system. TTL or manual. TTL is in plus or minus 3 stops. High-speed sync, normal, and rear. You're going to have to check your camera, and we put out a lot of information. Some cameras are going to take advantage of the rear curtain sync right on that. Some of it, you're going to have to go into your camera. I'm shooting Sony right now, and I have to go into my camera and put it on rear curtain. On Nikons, let's say, I can just do it from the trigger. Firmwares is something that we do all the time. We have a USB-C, comes with it. We do lots of firmware so that we maintain the fact that we are up to date with your newest camera. All right, all that stuff. The last one's pretty cool. It does make us different. But if you're here and you care about photography enough to be spending your time watching this, then what you care about, or what you should care about, is consistency. There may be more powerful lights. There may be, at some point, somebody might come out with something that's faster. Okay. Where we really put our foot down is that we are consistent. And you're going to see a couple more lights in this presentation in a second. They all maintain within a very tight tolerance, 5,500 Kelvin. We really are going to put down our foot on that because it means that when you shoot an FJ400 and an FJ200, if you shoot 2 FJ400s, if you shoot them at 9, if you shoot them at 1, which is our power range, 9 being full power, 1 being the bottom, that you're going to get consistent light from shot to shot to shot. When you are brand new to photography and like everything's on price and that's the only thing you look at, there might be some options out there. You go, well, that's a little cheaper. Yeah, they are a little cheaper. And let's look at that word, cheap. Cheap isn't good always. There's a saying that, we grew up with, or I grew up with, that cheap isn't good and good isn't cheap. Our stuff is very affordable. It's aggressively priced, but we strive to maintain consistency and to be a professional tool for photographers that care. And I hope that's all of you, because it was the thing. I had tested other lights when I, in my previous life before I came to Westcott. And then I had tested the FJ400. And it was night and day, a different scene. When I'm shooting spring training, or I'm shooting a step and repeat at a daddy-daughter dance, or I'm shooting my daughter, doesn't make a difference what I'm shooting. What I want is the first shot and the last shot and every shot in between to look the same, unless I make a creative choice to change that. This one, I think, can't get around this. That we live in a world where, things break. This is an AC/DC unit. It does go outside. Things fall over. Accidents happen. I've dropped more than I like to say, my FJ400s. And I'll tell you this, they keep working. I haven't had to send one back for repair yet. But if I did, and I didn't work here, I could just send it back to Ohio. That's not just, that's not the end of it. Our customer support is there. 8:30 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon, ready to answer your calls. But you guys also, if you're watching this, you have my email. If you're having a problem on the weekend, give me a shout. My answer might be, you're going to have to get in touch with customer service on Monday. But if it's something simple, well, I'm going to help you. And that's a difference that, if I'm being honest here, nobody else has. I will, stand by our customer service. But one light and one trigger doesn't make a system. So last year, in the middle of the pandemic, we said, let's make this into a full system. Let's get going. And we introduced the FJ80, which is our speed light. And it's more than a speed light. It's the industry's first round head touchscreen speed light. Super simple to use. Again, all the cameras at brands that the FJ X2M is compatible with, so is this. High-speed sync, rear sync. It's a transceiver, so it can be used on the shoe and control the other lights in our system. When I shoot a wedding, that's my go-to. This is in the shoe, a couple of FJ400s cross lighting, and really giving me a great quality light with easy, really easy to use menus. We've got 3 use modes: host, which controls the FJ wireless system; client, for when I put it off camera and I use either another FJ80 or the X2M to control it; or speedlight. Speedlight's when we just put it into the shoe and it works like a speedlight has for years. Now, what's cool about this is all the things I'm telling you about. Hold on. Like I said, I haven't done this one. This is a new class for me. Again, we are still compatible with all those brands. We're compatible with the Canon RT system. So if you're one of those people out there that shoots Canon and you are looking at RTs, well, there's a significant price difference without giving up quality, which is a great thing to have. 80 watt seconds. Now, for you guys that don't know, because most speedlights don't list how many watt seconds they have, the average top of the line speedlight out there is somewhere around 65. It's not a big difference, but it's a difference. We've got 9 stops of difference of control. We've got 400 full power flashes per charge. That lithium polymer battery is really light. So even though this is a relatively large flash with a nice round head, which gives a great quality light, it's still not super heavy. Recycle time is 1.2 seconds at full power. I came from shooting another brand's, first party flashes, and at full power, it was closer to 4 seconds. This is really, really fast. We've got manual, we've got TTL. High speed sync, normal, rear curtain. It's got a built-in modeling light, just like the 400 does. When I'm at an event now, most of us, I think a lot of us, are transitioning or thinking about transitioning over to mirrorless. And up until now, like most mirrorless cameras cannot take advantage of the focus assist for event work. Well, in an emergency, I turn on the modeling light, and it gives me plenty of light to focus. This is what comes with it, exactly what you expect. Again, the USB-C cable for doing your firmware updates, charger cord, travel case, ready to go. There's the charger. Some accessories just to give it a little bit softer light. How do we make soft light? Take the small light source and make it bigger. We've already got a really great large round head, which if you were to shoot an event and you were to shoot side by side with an old traditional style Fresnel rectangle front, you'd automatically see the difference. There's a reason that some of these other strobes that our switch insert is compatible with, that there's a reason a lot of people are going to that round head. Quality of light, quality of light, quality of light. You hear me say it over and over until it's a broken record, but consistency and quality is what makes light more important now. If you want to separate yourself from all the other photographers, your high ISO camera is not going to be the thing that does that. Your major megapixel camera isn't going to do that. The quality of the light, how you tell your story, where you place it, how soft it is, how hard it is, the shadows, that's all going to be the thing. You can get a grid for it, you can get gels for it, ready to go. All right. In our switch system, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, you can use all of our switch softboxes with this, which now works for not only the FJ80, but some of the other popular speedlights that are out there. The FJ200, which is quickly becoming my favorite. I think that 200 watts is a really happy spot for a lot of people. I always want more, trust me. But when you take a look at the FJ200 and its form factor, which you can't tell in this picture, it's about the size of a 70-200 f4, not a 2.8, like an f4. It is small, but it's still giving you 200 watt seconds of power. And remember when I told you that the average speedlight on the market right now is around 65, that means that we're like at 3.5 speedlights in this little tiny package. That's a lot of power, which gives you a lot of creative flexibility and really lets you, focus more on being creative and less on dealing with the shortcomings of your gear. There it is. This is how it's set up when we get it. You got the little umbrella bracket ready to go. It comes with the reflector, comes with a grid on the front of there, and comes with the gels. Let's go over what the FJ200 brings. 200 watt seconds of power. And again, it's a bare front element. So it's a real 200 watt seconds. It's not 200 watt seconds that's helped by a Fresnel. It's not 200 watt seconds that's, going to be centered in the middle of your softbox and give you kind of hard light out of a source that you paid to get soft light out of. It really doesn't make sense. Same 9 stops, 450 full power per charge. Again, it's AC/DC. You can get an adapter to plug it in. Flash duration up to 20,000th of a second. Recycle time is 1.3 seconds at full power. That is half a second faster than our nearest competition. And it's even faster, it's even more of a break when you consider that our main competition, if you put them into a mode to maintain their white balance, they get even slower and they lose power. Ours comes right out of the box, ready to be up to your standards as a serious working photographer, or a serious photographer in general. Never mind if you're working at this. 55, 5600 is our modeling light in this. Same wireless range. It comes with the strobe, the tilter, the bracket, the cover, the metal reflector, the 30-degree grid, the gels. All comes in a nice package, ready to go. If you want to take that and you want to use that with all of your existing Bowens mount, modifiers, well, we've got this quick mount S bracket. Quick mount S bracket is really nice. It's based off of a system that uses a quick release plate. Screws right into the 1/4-20 on the bottom of either the FJ200 or the FJ80. Allows you to slip it into there, and instead of screwing down on your unit and possibly causing damage to it, it just slips right into the middle. It's a really neat setup that I really enjoy. You see it there, slips in and out. Really, I gotta say, I love using this thing. I've used some other options. This is the best one that I've seen. Again, it works with the FJ80 as well. And you see that there's 3 cold shoes around the outside of that. So if you're in a situation where you were carrying a couple of speed lights and an FJ200, you could turn that into one big light source really easily. There you go. The AC power adapter it's definitely something that I love using when I'm in the studio. I can use my 200s as hair lights, as accessory lights, something to light the background, and be totally comfortable with that. When I plug it in, it'll shoot all day. Diffusion dome works on both the FJ80 and on the FJ200. Honeycomb snoot, gives you a really tight little light source. We've got some kits out there right now. There's even more that we've released recently. But right now you've got, multiple kits that are available to you. So we talked about our lighting system, and we talked about why our lights are better or different than everybody else. I think that something that's worth noting is that, again, when you're buying a great camera or a great lens, you don't go and put a cheap filter in front of it. Well, when you buy a consistent light source, what you want to do is you want to put the best quality modifiers in front of it that you can. So here, this is going to be the Rapid Box family I'm going to talk about. And at the heart of the Rapid Box is that it is now the switch, which means that if you're choosing to use our lights, or you're choosing to use lights from any brand, you can change it up, and you can use it with anything that's there. If you take a look at that list there, there's every light that you might possibly have. And that allows them to be put onto the back of all of our softboxes, all of our modifiers, and allows you to make the choice to have great light quality at a reasonable price with great build, great construction, but also the best, diffusion material. If you take a look at some of the less expensive diffusion material out there and you were to shoot it against a wall and you were to look at the difference in the white balance between the pictures, you'd see a difference. You don't have to trust me. You can go test it yourself, but you will see a difference. So in the switch system, we've got a bunch of different modifiers. And one of the number one questions I get when I teach the real lighting heavy version of this is how do you choose which modifier to use when? And some of that is going to be simple as what are you shooting? But a bigger part of it is going to be what is your desired outcome. If I want super soft light, but I can't put the light really close to my subject, then I need to go to something like an Octa L. If I want really, really soft light and I'm going to put it, I have the ability to put it really close to the subject, I can get away with the Octa S, which is going to give me a nice big light source that's going to be in relation to the size of the subject, really soft. All of these are great, and what I love about them is that when I shoot outside, if we look into the catch lights, it's a rounded catch light, which is really attractive and really flattering to most subjects. Now, when I'm going to a multi-light setup, usually my main light will be an Octa because I shoot outside so much. You saw kind of in my work. And even when I'm inside, I like a round catch light. But then I got strip lights. And strip lights are going to give you a more directional, smaller area, especially when you combine with a grid, but a more controlled light that can sometimes be a main light. Like I'll use the 1x4s for athletic pictures or something where I'm really trying to be gritty. It's going to give you a tighter light, light source. Even though it's large, it is still tighter. So it's more directional, more onto the subject where you want it to be, and not quite as big. Then we got the rectangles. 2x3, 3x4. I love these when I need the softest light possible, especially when I'm shooting inside. If I'm in the studio and I'm trying to simulate window light, but the window light's not there, the window's not there, the sun's not on the right side of the building, I will throw a little bit of gel onto my light and use one of these to simulate a big, beautiful, open, window. Then we have our beauty dish. The Joel Grimes beauty dish is a 26-inch beauty dish. Gives great light. It's a pretty much perfectly round light source, which gives great. And it comes with the deflector plate, which gives you that beauty dish look, which is a little bit more contoured, especially when you put it right up close to the subject. You're going to get that contoured, pretty, beautiful light. That is why we call it a beauty dish. Now, in 2021, we came out with a couple of new mods, which I'm really excited about. And I've really been using this first one a ton. And the second one I've been using and can't wait to use more because it's really fun, really entertaining to me. First is the Manny Ortiz 36-inch beauty dish. Again, it's a switch. So whichever lights if you're using a different lighting brand than us, it's okay. You can still get the insert and you can use this with everybody else. You're still going to get the great light quality, that round head, great construction. The deflector plates included, going to really give you a great quality of light. We also came with the optical spot by Lindsay Adler this year. Super exciting, super fun. And when you get it, some of you are going like, what's an optical spot? What's it do? Well, an optical spot allows you to project different patterns onto the background or onto your subject, depending on what you want to do. And these are the ones that it comes with right now. Some of these shapes, these are called gobos, for those of you that don't know and you're interested in just being exciting. You've got parallel lines, barcode, a window. The window is really, really fun for when you don't have window light, but you want it to seem like you do. And those are some more fun ones. But these are just the ones that just come with it, as well as a few gels. But we've also added in a couple of gobo packs that you can buy after, which really send the creativity up to 11. Really done, really different, looks that you can do a lot of fun stuff with. And the only thing that's limiting you is your creativity. Whether you want to paint these onto the back, and then you can combine these with the gels to make these patterns be different colors or to make your background be different colors, you get a lot of flexibility. The other modifiers that I really be remiss from talking about because price point versus quality of light, two of my favorite modifiers. The 43-inch Apollo Orb, anybody who has seen me teach the long version of From Fear to Flash has seen this in the background a bunch of times. It's 43 inches, so it's not quite 4 feet, but it's a big light source that folds up like an umbrella, gives a great quality of light. I've really gotten a second life out of this with the FJ200 because it really fits in there perfectly, and I can really take advantage. Where I was using speed lights with this in the past, now I have the flexibility to move it closer, farther back, and still get all of that great light out of it. And then the Apollo JS is a 50-inch rectangular, glorious light source that can take your speed light, or better yet, an FJ200, and make it into a really big light source. That mini boom arm, which I never leave home without, takes your regular light stand, takes your tripod, and turns it into a much more useful tool to help you get better light everywhere you go. We started in 1899 as an umbrella company, and we will keep making umbrellas until we're done, which hopefully is never. If you name it, we make the umbrella that will handle you and give you the type of light that you want out of an umbrella. 43-inch, 53-inch deep umbrellas, 7-foot umbrellas that really, cost versus quality of light can't be beat. You can throw a little bit of diffusion on the ends of those and get even better quality of light. All right. I want to say thank you guys for stopping in to listen. I hope that there was enough of a mix. And, if you take one thing out of this class from today about lighting, it's that every exposure that you do is 2 separate exposures. And once you figure that out, lighting becomes really simple. Whether you want to use something like one of our Solixes, which I'm using to light myself here, or if you're using one of our strobes. And then the second thing I'd like you to think about is just that it's not about the amount of light anymore. It's about the quality of light. It's about the placement of the light, the color of the light. And being consistent is the #1 thing you can ask as a photographer. And our system gives that to you. Our system is really designed to give you the best tools that you can get at a really great price point. Again, there's my information one more time. I welcome, questions. Hopefully we have a couple after this. But if you think about it later, or you're just embarrassed to talk, just hit me up on my email, hit me up on Instagram, and I'll answer you, and we can talk about lights. Definitely happy to talk to you, and hopefully get you to get yourselves something for Christmas.
Excellent.
Thanks a lot, guys. Let me stop the share. There we go.
Welcome back. Welcome back to me. So I will follow that up, that message that JC put out there. If there are questions that you have that you want to get answered, throw them in here now. If you are concerned, we try to make this space hopefully, open for everybody. So there's no issue. We've all been there. We're all beginners. We've all, been on that journey. So there's no question that you can ask hasn't been asked or hasn't been thought about. So get them in. And I can personally tell you from knowing JC for many, many years, and I'm doing this on camera, which is probably a bad idea because he can hold this against me now. But JC is one of the best guys out there. He's a great guy and he loves to answer these questions. So no better person to get that answered if you have them. So there it is. Also a reminder to everybody, it is the holiday time, and with that does come a lot of nice promotions and things like that. I did check it out while JC was talking. There are some nice promotions going on some of the lights, some nice discounts. Everybody loves to save money, and if you don't, then that's totally fine. You can pay full price and just send me whatever you save. I'll take it, but since that's not happening, let's move on. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, we talked about quality of light, and that was a big driving factor here. Definitely took that away, which makes sense. But I wanted to dive a little bit, starting with the FJ80.
Yep.
Can you sort of talk a little bit about, I'm dating myself here, but back in the day, all speed lights were always square, rectangular, that shape. And now we're seeing the emergence, with the FJ80 and other brands are going more towards that circular head. Does that just come down to better, consistent quality light, or is there more to it than just that?
No, it's 100% about the quality of light. When you take a rectangular light source and you throw it forward, especially if you're using a modifier, but let's even take the modifier out of the equation. We're at an event, we're at a birthday party, we're shooting whatever, and we've got the light right in the shoe, which is my favorite place to put it. But let's just say that's what we're doing. That square rectangular light source that's really being pushed through a Fresnel is coming out hard, and it's a small light source. By going from a rectangle to a circle, we've doubled the amount of space. We've already made the light softer by going round instead. It's more flattering. In the catch lights, when you shoot somebody, it looks better. When you put modifiers into this equation, and it's night and day different. You look at an FJ80 going through a softbox or an umbrella versus a traditional speedlight, you can see the hot spot in the middle of the softbox, which really takes away, why am I putting a softbox on to still get a hot spot in the middle? With us, it's filling up as much of the modifier as possible, putting out a much more pleasing, softer light. Great question, Scott.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you for that. So moving into a little bit of the modifiers kind of, conversation. When we're looking at umbrellas and we're looking at things like that, there's obviously so many different options to choose from, and I think that can be really confusing for people. You've got silver, you've got white, different options. How do you differentiate? What is kind of the go-to deciding factor of what internal color I should be looking for when I'm looking for those umbrellas?
That's a phenomenal question, Scott. And again, here we are. It's recorded, but I've just let you know you have a good question. So, I tend to be in two camps. If I'm going to bounce my light because I need it to be an even bigger light source, I tend to go with a silver interior. It's going to give you a more specular highlight. Obviously, if you talk to enough people, it's going to go back and forth, back and forth. But if I'm going to bounce, I'm starting with a smallish light source usually. If I'm doing a speed light or an FJ200, and I want to make it the biggest light source I can, then an umbrella is the easiest way to do that. But that silver is going to make it so that bounce isn't going to rob me of too much power. So I don't have to put it right on top of my subject. It does change the way that the highlights look. And for me, I will always, the big dirty secret in photography is that, people do a lot of post, and for me, I can clean up the skin easier than I can clean up details in their outfits or details in their hair. So the specular highlights don't bother me. I like that little bit more crunchy kind of look. Now, if I'm going for just soft and natural, like some of my pictures, I'm definitely known as somebody who's probably a little flashy. I tend to underexpose my backgrounds more. I like that look. It's part of my style. But when I shoot wedding portraits or I shoot something where I'm really trying to simulate natural light, and I'm outside especially, a big shoot-through white umbrella is like the most inexpensive, easiest to set up light source. And that white, ours are made out of a great material. When it hits the subject, it's still white. It's not going to change color tone, color temperature as it goes through. So I really love that. The reason I don't love umbrellas indoors, and why you mentioned me go outdoors, it's better, is because indoors an umbrella is fantastic if you don't care where the light goes after. That's why I'm so much of a softbox guy. But outside, like, I don't care where the light goes after. It goes past them, boom, keeps going. Cool, we got great soft light. Indoors, it's going to tend to hit the walls, it's going to hit the background. And if that's what you want, like if I'm shooting a studio with a white background, well, and the light going past it, that's great. But a lot of times I don't want that. I want a little bit more control. And that kind of answers two questions at one time. So what umbrella we should choose, but also why umbrellas versus softboxes. Where softboxes have a lot more control. You can grid them. You have a lot more control. And if you listen to me enough, it's control.
There you go. So let's dive into a little bit of a question that is going to be a tough one for you. Maybe it's not. I mean, I think you kind of hit on it, but
we'll see.
So
I got answers.
There you go. What was that? Kinko's? I think so. So when people are getting started in lighting, that's kind of how we started this. Is hopefully there's somebody out there who's watching this or who's going to watch this in the future, and maybe they're looking at their first light. They're trying to figure out their first setup. There's so many different people and so many different thoughts of what you can use and how to utilize things. And it used to be that you had to have at least two lights, and then people realized, well, no, I don't need two lights. I want one light. And then some people are like, well, no, I want three lights. Obviously there's different needs and different purposes for all. And, that's going to differentiate from person to person. But just getting started, what do you recommend somebody looking into it? Do you stay traditional with that sort of two light mentality? Do you get started using one light? How do you recommend people dive into lighting?
That's a phenomenal question, and I actually enjoy talking about it. So I spend an awkward, unreasonable amount of time looking at magazine covers. Very rarely do I buy them anymore, but just if I'm in the line at the supermarket or I am at the the local bookstore, looking at these magazines and trying to reverse engineer what's in them. And there's a lot of times where KISS comes into play, right? Let's keep it simple. And I'd say that if you look at my work through the overall body of my work, 65-70% of it is one light. And it was just that case. A lot of times I'm putting the sun behind my subject, which is a cheater's second light, or I'm doing various things. But what it was for me really at the beginning was really understanding that it's all two separate exposures and not having to make I didn't want to have to let myself down by my gear saying you can only shoot this, right? So I'm like, all right, I really like the way the background looks right now. I've got this beautiful background. How can but I can't see my subject. Well, let's add a light. And that was that was like a defining moment in my life as a photographer, was being able to go, well, I can do this and it's easy. It didn't have to be, because at the beginning, like everybody else, I bought a 3-light setup when I first bought lights, right? And I was determined to use them. It's like, I bought them, I'm going to use them. And you're like, oh man, I'm working backwards from this. I'm trying to work from my gear to my vision instead of from my vision to my gear. So when I started this, I said, I think that everybody who is going to get into lights has to really ask themselves that question first. What am I trying to do? Am I trying to be a high fashion photographer where I'm going to throw 4 lights at various parts of this and light each section individually? Or am I trying to be somebody who's just got a vision and wants a better picture in any situation? And then there's obviously lots of levels in between that. And as you get going, you build up a repertoire of tricks, and you make a lot of mistakes. You revel in that failure, and you go, how can I take that failure and apply it going forward to fail forward? Because I think a lot of photography is about failing forward. We all look back at our old work and we're like, this is awful. And this kind of goes to what I was talking about with why consistency is so important with your light setup, is that you're already fighting your lack of knowledge. You don't want to actually have to fight your gear at the same time. And be like, why is this one brighter than this shot? Why is this one a different color than this shot? And that's why we really strive to be able to give you this consistency, because then it lets you really, flourish as a creative being and go, all right, what works best for me? There's a lot of times now where I bring out that second light. The number of times that you'll see me go to a third, fourth light is minuscule. I'm not downplaying that. There's a reason that the 3-light setup is the standard for a lot of people. It kind of goes to what you were saying. It used to be, the common knowledge was 3-light setup. And that's because we all saw there was no such thing as high-speed sync. Modifiers were much more expensive to get. Everybody was going, I'm going to light this. So you had to light the whole thing. That was the look that we saw in catalogs and magazines and yada, yada. But we're so much freer now to be more creative, to make things. I just saw Esther's question. I'll get to it in a second. I popped up and I was like, lost you for a moment. I would love to, one day, what we should do? We should get like a round table where we should just invite like 5 or 6 people and hear everybody's opinion. Because I think that a lot of us have crossover, but like everybody comes at it from a different field. But yeah, I think that if I was coming into it brand new today and somebody could sit me down and tell me 3 things, it would be, every lit exposure is 2 separate exposures. Just get that wrap your head around that. Then it would be, don't overcomplicate your life. Keep it simple. Because there's going to be a lot of times where you have an idea about what you want to do with all this gear, and then the world's not going to cooperate. You're out by yourself and it's windy, and all of a sudden you can't use that 5-foot umbrella. You can only use a bare light, and by knowing how to do what you needed to do, you'll make the most of that situation rather than feeling a failure or just going, I can't do this, which you see people do. I see it happen in classes. I see it happen, in the real world. Those would be the things that I tell myself. So that's great, Scott. I'm going to answer Esther's question real quick.
Sure.
Esther from YouTube, long time listener, first time caller. Yeah, definitely, Esther. I will use umbrellas indoors. If I made it sound like I won't, I apologize. It's that I tend to be a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more underexposed, and moody in a lot of my work. So when I'm shooting against a black background, let's say, or I'm looking to make a black background, the umbrella is not necessarily the best tool for that, because the light's going to be a giant light source that's going to hit the white walls in my living room or in the studio and bounce around and have less control. But if I'm shooting against a gray background or a white background, we don't have time to get into inverse square law or all the other things where this kind of comes into play, where the further back the light is, the more of it hits the background. If I want a lot of light to hit the background, then umbrellas become a great choice. And it's just really about, when you're in the, you have 5 or 6 different lenses. I think the average photographer has 4 to 5 lenses. The average person who buys a camera, maybe not so, because a lot of them never buy anything past the kit lens. But the average person who's sitting here watching me today has different lenses for different needs. And it's the same with the modifiers. You're not going to have one modifier that's going to be your be-all. It's going to solve every one of your problems. You're going to have to go, which one of these best is the best solution to the problem or the challenge that I've given myself? It's a great question. Thank you, Esther.
Awesome. Well, JC, always a pleasure to have you here. We really appreciate it. Great amount of knowledge gained today. Definitely some different ways and thought processes to think about and change your mindset that at least I thought about as you were talking. So thank you very much for that. Thank you to Westcott, sponsors of the event.
There's only a couple of days left on those Cyber Week specials, so make sure that you check them out.
That's right. I believe they expired December 3rd, so make sure you get them in before then. Otherwise, they won't last. There you go.
Those prices again this year, so definitely get on them.
Excellent. Well, JC, thanks again so much. Everybody at home, thank you for joining us as well. As a reminder, if you're looking for more great content or you just want to see what's coming up, check us out on Instagram. It's the place to be, BH Event Space. We're there, Facebook, Vimeo, you know the drill. This has been another rendition of the B&H Virtual Event Space.